Hey, quadrilateral geometry masters. Here is our last activity with quadrilaterals before you get sent off to do a scavenger hunt for quadrilaterals and other polygons. This is a little almost like a game or clues that you're going to say whether it's going to be true or false. Remember, for something to be true, it has to be true all the time without exception. Okay? Um, so we're going to look at these statements and you're going to determine whether it's true or false or something else that you can use for each one of them. So let's take a peek. I wrote this on the side just as a reminder of the properties of each one of these shapes so we can look at them. All right, let's take a look at this first one. A rectangle is a quadrilateral. Does a rectangle have four sides? Yes, it sure does. Does it always have four sides? Yes, it sure does. So this is true. Has to be true. This is not A. It says all parallelograms are trapezoids. Well, let's think this one through. Parallelograms have to have two pairs of parallel sides. This little symbol means parallel. A trapezoid has to have one pair of parallel sides. So can a parallelogram be a trapezoid if it has to have two pairs, but trapezoids only have one? Absolutely not. That is not possible, so it is not true. A quadrilateral is a square. Well, let's see. A quadrilateral is a square. Are all quadrilaterals squares? No, I know some quadrilaterals like one, two, three. Oh, that's a pentagon. Forget that. How about this one? That's a quadrilateral. Is that a square? That's a quadrilateral. Is that a square? No. Not all quadrilaterals are squares. Some of them can be, but not every one. A quadrilateral is a trapezoid. Well, just for my argument for the last one, this is a quadrilateral, but it's not a trapezoid. This one is a trapezoid, but it's a quadrilateral. So it has to be true for every circumstance. So a quadrilateral is not a trapezoid every single time. So I have to put false on there. A rhombus is a rectangle. Well, a rhombus has to have parallel sides, two pairs. So does a rectangle. So that's true. But a rhombus also has four equal sides. Does a rectangle have to have four equal sides? No, only its opposite sides have to be equal. So a rhombus does not have to be a rectangle. Is a trapezoid a parallelogram? Well, a trapezoid only has one pair of parallel sides and a parallelogram has two. So no, a trapezoid's not a parallelogram. This one right here is the trickiest one. You'll have a question like, is a square a rectangle or a rectangle a square? One of them is true and one of them is not. So let's see if we can figure out which one. A square is a rectangle. So in order for a square to be a rectangle, a square has to have all of the properties that a rectangle has. All right, so I'm going to draw a square here so we can look at it and talk about it. Oh, that looks more like a rectangle. I'm trying to draw sideways. Let me get my thing turned around here. All right, that's more like a square, okay? A square is a rectangle. So let's look at the properties for a rectangle. Parallel sides, two pairs. Well, yes, it's a parallelogram, so it's got to have two pairs of parallel sides. We got that. Does it have four right angles? Well, yes, it does. It has four corners here, four right angles. So far, so good. Are its opposite sides equal? This side equals this side, and this side equals this side. So the opposite sides are equal. And that's all the properties for a rectangle. So yes, a square is a rectangle. A square is always a rectangle. We picture rectangles to look like this, but you have to remember that a square is also a rectangle because the opposite sides are equal. It just so happens that those opposite sides are also equal. Now, if I were to turn that statement around and ask, a rectangle is a square. Okay, so here's my rectangle. Let's see if this one's true. If a rectangle is a square, that means the rectangle has to have all the properties that a square has. Okay, let's look at the square. Does it have two pairs of parallel sides? Absolutely. Does it have 4 right angles? Absolutely. Does it have 4 equal sides? No, it does not. So a rectangle is not always a square, but a square is always a rectangle. Told you it sounds funny. It's like almost like a play on words. They really make you think that one out. And our last one is a rectangle is a quadrilateral. Of course it is, because a rectangle has to have 4 sides. So that has to be true. Good job identifying those quadrilaterals.